Hey there and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug video. And what do you know, we're back again with more leaks. And yeah, suppose before I go any further, I'll give a disclaimer. I'm not going to be telling you where to find the leaks, nor am I actually going to talk about what's been leaked. You know, historically people have had channels and videos taken down for going in depth like that, and I have no real desire to get in trouble, so if you're here just to look for leaks, sorry. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean we can't talk about the problem in general, right? Right? Because my God, what is going on with this show these days? At this point, it actually kind of feels tragic. I mean, Miraculous in general has always been no stranger to leaks. You know, minor plot points, character profiles, images, titles, you know, that sort of stuff's been leaking for years. And this is pretty much the standard for the majority of franchises. Marvel, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, heaps of different video games. No matter where you are or what the property is, there's going to be leaks. But now, things are being taken to a whole nother level with Miraculous, and in my eyes, I feel like it's really damaging the franchise as a whole going forward. And we'll get to that in a moment, but first, some context. So yeah, Miraculous really gained a lot of momentum a couple of years ago. They built up a pretty big following throughout Season 1, and that only grew throughout Seasons 2 and 3. And of course, right from the very beginning, there's always been a few problems that the fandom wanted addressed. For many, the pace of the writing was far too slow, with some plot points legitimately taking years to come to fruition. Character arcs were all over the place, and there was some major discontent with a number of major story points. A classic one's the absolute storm of hate, the epic flame war that came about in the aftermath of the Season 3 finale, Miracle Queen, where Chloe's heroic journey came to a permanent end and she embraced villainy forever. And for many, this was proof that the show was just spinning its wheels and didn't want anything to progress at all, and pretty much just returned all the character dynamics to what they were at the start of Season 1. On top of that, from a production and distribution point of view, animation quality was majorly hit or miss for years, and the episodes have famously aired out of order since, forever, which would throw off story cohesion and momentum. But then we hit Season 4, and things, they started to look sort of up. Episodes would still air out of order at times, but at least they were in their own self-contained mini story arcs that linked them all together. And the writing, while still a bit spotty in Season 4, did show signs of improvement, and has only continued to improve in Season 5 in my opinion. However, this is also where we started to hit the leaks a little bit harder. And it's a problem that's only grown and grown throughout the latter half of Season 4 into the beginning of Season 5. I mean, seriously, so much has leaked, it's actually crazy. And once again, I'm not going to put a target on my back to explicitly tell you what it is, but it's literally so easy to find. If you follow the show at all, I'm 100% confident that your social media profile is going to target posts towards you that have that information. And honestly, I think it is kind of turning into a massive problem for the show going forward. And it's a problem that absolutely needs to be stamped out. And yeah, I would say that the primary risk of these leaks is that you see a downturn in audience engagement and satisfaction. And maybe that seems a little bit dramatic, but I do think it's a major issue. For one, Miraculous, as I said earlier, has always had a bit of an issue with dodgy writing. I'm in the middle of rewatching a bunch of older episodes from Season 1 and doing some retrospectives on those, and woof, some of those episodes are rough to watch. And then there was also the major backlash against a bunch of the writing choices throughout the last couple of seasons, and so I'd argue that already, those have shrunk the fan base even just a little bit. Controversial writing choices often do have this effect, but usually a show can bounce back. But the problem with Miraculous is the absolute trash tier release schedule that makes it very difficult to be an actual casual fan. Since episodes come out at snail pace and you can never really be sure when it's going to be released in your language, you often need to wait weeks or months between episodes, and thus, you need to head over to the Brazilian Portuguese dub on Gloob to get your quick fix. Because, Gloob just can't resist releasing episodes whenever they get their hands on them. Therefore, you sort of need to become a hardcore fan, and many people don't want to have to do that, and so the fandom struggles to recover from those hibernation periods. Because less and less people come back because they just don't know it's back. Now, listen, I'm not claiming the show's dying by any means, but it definitely feels far less popular than it was even a year or two ago. And that brings me to the leaks, because this season, it has gotten bad. So much stuff is leaking out, pictures, episodes, plot points, you name it. It's on offer. And clearly, in the short term, it has served to drive up a bit of interest. You clearly see this sort of stuff all the time. People can't resist taking a peek, and then they want to talk about it, etc., etc. And so it drives up engagement for a couple of days or weeks or whatever it is. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. It's all over social media. Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, endless hordes of fans talking about what they're seeing or hearing or reading. And yeah, that's good for short-term gains, I guess. But in the long term, I feel like it's a massive blunder that has the chance to stifle the show's momentum even more. And why is that? Because from what I've been seeing from posts that have cropped up in my feed, a lot of people are either annoyed, mad, sad, or disappointed. And this is always the massive risk of leaked scripts or whatever it is. You run the gauntlet there. People might read them and think, ooh, this sounds great. And thus they hype up the rest of the fandom. But more likely, people are going to read it and think, oh, that's actually complete and utter dog shit and I'm not going to bother watching it and everyone else shouldn't either. And that's not a good thing, obviously. And I don't think it's always fair as well, because often things play out differently on screen than they look like they will in a storyboard or a script or a synopsis. What initially seems like a poor writing choice can actually be made 100% better once you see it play out in the context of the show. So, I would urge caution to anybody who's sought out the leaks and decided they don't want to watch anymore. Trust me, I've been there with other franchises. Something that seems terrible when you read it actually turns out to not be so bad once you've watched it. Although the opposite can be true as well. I will admit, I read the Rise of Skywalker spoilers, but it was worse than I could have ever possibly imagined. Oh, somehow Palpatine has returned. Ugh. That was a dark era. But yeah, back on topic, the massive risk here is that fans are turned away from the show as they perceive what they've seen to be bad, and thus they don't want to waste their time on it. And this is simply made worse by the fact that in these other franchises, it is only the hardcore fans that really get hit hard by these leaks and spoilers because so many of them actively seek them out. And indeed, there are dedicated subreddits and communities that engage in these sort of discussions. But for the most part, the casuals do escape unscathed and get to go into things fresh. But like I said earlier, in my eyes, besides the kids who watch the show when it's on, the majority of the consistent audience feels like they verge towards the hardcore side of things, simply because it's too difficult to be a true casual here. Imagine that. A show that is too hard to watch to be a casual. Oh. Anyway, because of this, spoilers, leaks, they spread like wildfire throughout the fandom, and they're very, very difficult to properly contain. And so, more and more of that target audience gets exposed to the leaks, which in turn makes them upset, which in turn risks alienating more of them from the show completely. On top of that, it really doesn't help that there's seemingly no effort to actually crack down on this from the production team or anything like that. The distributors? I mean, there's a reason that Marvel and Star Wars spoilers and leaks are mostly hidden away, because they get cracked down on quite hard by Disney. You don't mess with the mouse. HBO, BBC, Netflix, companies that are very defensive of their intellectual property and TV rights. Rarely do massive things get leaked from these sort of companies, and when they do leak, people get found out and people get in trouble. I mean, look at the teen who hacked Rockstar Games this year, right? And released a bunch of data. He's charged, he's probably going to get a massive fine, potentially prison time, and likely will get sued to hell and back by Rockstar. Life ruined by 17 years old. I mean, it doesn't stop it completely, but they do go after the big leakers. And I feel like in the context of this show, this is a big time leak. But I feel like it's not happening at all. I don't know who's leaking this stuff, or where they're leaking it from, which company they work for, if they're just a hacker. But it feels like so much has been dropped, and I can't help but wonder, are the internal investigations even taking place? Or are they just turning up nothing? Or do they just not care? It sets a truly terrible precedent for this sort of stuff to be leaking every couple of months, and in the long term, I don't think it can really be good for the sustained success and longevity of the franchise as a whole. But yeah, with all that being said, I think we'll end things here. And I would like to remind you that these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think about all these leaks? You think it's fine for the leaks to keep coming? Would you prefer if they just stopped? Think what I'm saying is accurate about them? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.